on the screen.
I know.
Oh, okay,
This is
okay.
a test email.
Oh, okay.
Personal test. I use it to make some game account as well.
Oh, nice.
Throw away, throw away account. But I will do this. Okay. We'll have inline content script. What else? What else should we demo? Oh, actually, we live now, I think.
Cool. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another rendition of our Plasma demo series. We got some really good stuff happening this week. I think one of the biggest ones, Lewis, is the breaking. I think it's one of our first kind of breaking change, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So I think people should be on the lookout for that because that's going to impact a lot of people. If you're working on the overlay, or I guess it used to be called mount.
Yeah. So there are two new changes, right? The Node env, we have the CS inline, and the package name. All right.
Is there any theme? Like, why did we work on this and not other stuff?
I think they are just stuff that been in my mind for a while, and you know it get itchy to the point where he just to scratch it.
And I think the other thing, right, is like a bunch of people have been asking for a lot of these, right?
Yeah, more or less. As we see more people requesting this issue or requesting this feature, right, on the on Discord, we start seeing like the more people talking trash about something, right, the more we have the urge to scratch it.
Yeah,
It's
definitely,
like,
because that means there's a need, right? Like,
yeah,
if we, if a lot of people talk like, oh my God, like this thing is so difficult or whatever,
yeah.
and we know like, okay, that's actually a really big pain point, right? So,
Yeah. Like if a fly doesn't buzz, why would you kill it? You wouldn't.
uh, Plasma does not advocate for injuring or otherwise killing flies. Disclaimer.
Sure.
So, just for some context, to give a little Plasma lore, Lewis lives in Barbados, and there are a lot of flying insects in Barbados. So, routinely, as we have calls, you will hear a little zzz, buzz by the microphone from a mosquito or a stray fly.
Well, I don't think there's any fly in my room. There are fly in the kitchen though, and I mean that's kind of normal, right? A lot of kitchen do have fly, I think. This kitchen in especially in a tropical area, I think, because some reason they really, it's when you cook, it gets warm, humid, and the smell is good, so the fly would come in. I actually have like the net, the mesh, the window mesh to block the fly. They still got in. Yeah, so it's pretty annoying.
How do they get in?
I have no idea, but there probably some crack. Some crack. Also sewage, right? So the sewage system actually there might be some fly in the drain. Yeah.
Well, so are they like house flies or are they like fruit flies?
I think they both. I don't know, to be honest. Yeah.
Got it. If you have fruit fly issues, like we did when we used to live together in a college, yeah, just another piece of plasma lore. Lewis and I used to be roommates. We had a huge fruit fly issue. Do you remember that?
Interesting. Maybe. And then
So I have the most popular blog post I have ever written is about how to term like basically how to deal with fruit flies, and that was because of our living situation.
yeah.
So
Ah,
anyway,
I think
yeah,
the main source of audio problem for me is actually the bird. It's actually every night.
the
With the
bird is very annoying, and the dogs, right?
Yeah, well, the dog is every time I walk by, but not anymore nowadays. But
So do you have there is actually an app that you can install that you just take a recording of a bird and it will tell you what kind of bird it is. Have you done that?
I should. I don't know, to be honest. But yeah, I
Yeah,
might try that.
if you put a face to the sound, maybe you'll be more empathetic to it. Because right now you really hate it, right?
Yeah, I know. Well, it's a bird probably. I think. Anyway, let's move on with the demo,
Yeah.
shall we? All right, so let's take a look at the simplest one, the Node env. So this is a new feature we added to Plasma. Not new feature, right? This is kind of a feature that should have been there, but we forgot to add it. Basically, allow us to expose a Node env environment variable to the client side, right? So that user can actually take this Node env variable and tell the bundle, tell their code, hey, this is development or this production code, so on and so forth. Yeah, so this is now getting exposed to the to the client side, basically to the client side code. Yeah, nothing too fancy. We simply just initializing the environment with Node env from the process env. We actually also typing the Plasma browser as well. Yeah, so the environment. So we used to have the Plasma browser environment. That's just a string. But yeah, you know what? I said, why not just type it with the actual browser names? Making it simpler for people to play around with it. And then if you want to override this, you can. You can just you simply just declare the process env again, and declare your Plasma browser type however you want. Yeah. And then we also have the template string type here. So now it's actually the Plasma target would follow the list of browser. Yeah.
Yeah, I really love that you put Plasmo as one of the browsers as well. I thought that was pretty funny.
I know, right? I mean, it might become a thing, Maybe what is it? What do you call it? What do you call it? In a movie, right? In a movie, when something like kind of preparing for something in the future.
Like foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing, yeah. It's a
Yeah,
foreshadowing.
like in a storytelling. Yeah.
Okay. So actually, this one can be demo. Fix add proper package name to the Jerry project. So previously we had a bug. It actually in the journeying a project with example, it actually did not pass down the name you choose for your project into the folder name. So if you make with env, it just clone the project code and name it with env. Actually doesn't actually name it properly. So we can
Right. So it took the existing name of the example rather than using the name that you specify.
precisely, yeah.
Hmm.
So I noticed that during the workshop we did last time, right? We did the workshop, and then when you make the project, you name it with Wikipedia or whatever, right? Wiki query. But yeah, apparently it. Holy cow! It took 13 seconds.
That's very unlucky. Well, at least it's consistent.
At least it load my the shell at the location I want it to be, right? Yeah, previously it wasn't. Anyway, let's go to our Plasma test. Plasma test has become let's go to init. All right. So if I do pm, oh yeah, I can do this. Create Plasma Canary. Let's use it. We can use Canary and do it with. What do you want? What do you want to use?
Tailwind CSS.
Okay, sure. Without the framework, huh?
I know that you don't like it, which is why I love mentioning it.
Yeah, it sucks. Alright, let's create it. Okay, chop infamous bear.
Why is this so violent?
I know, right? What is it? Get now. Get malware.
Malware. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I recently found a little guide on. So we use Chalk, right?
Yes.
We use Chalk for like command
Coloring
line
and stuff.
output and colors and stuff.
Some of them, yes. Some of them. All right. So now get malware. have the right name in the package.json, hopefully. Yes, get nowhere and get nowhere. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome.
That's one bug. That's one bug fix on that front. We should document the width stuff though. The width example. Kind of the mechanism. We haven't documented that yet.
Cool.
You were saying?
Oh, I think I was just talking. What was I talking about? Like, oh, the chalk stuff. Yeah, like, apparently there's like to actually get colors to work. It's just some Unicode.
Yeah. You're
and
appending
they say-
Unicode.
Yeah, and then they say like a lot of developers add chalk when it's not necessary, and it like increases bundle size. So I saw that today in a newsletter that I get every week. It's pretty interesting. But yeah, that's awesome. So now we have that fixed. This is also kind of like a second demo of our support for pulling examples. So if you haven't used that yet, that is a good thing to do. Nice, cool. So the other thing, by the way, Lewis, if you look at our GitHub now on the issues, so I actually added, speaking of examples, an example where we can kind of like have an example for with node env. Yeah, I think that will also like just show like the power of that.
Yeah, maybe should we add it to the with env, or should we make it into a separate one?
What is the with env? Can you remind me again about that?
Why don't we create it? Node env, and node env example has a lot of basically have a lot of example inside itself to use env file. Right now, it's
Well,
just using.
Go ahead.
Right now, it basically just. Right now, it's only exposing few way of using env right now inside that project, either using a. I think it's importing. Yeah, right now it's using env process.env stuff. So let me just show it. Robin. Okay, how about you do Vim?
Oh, fancy.
Yeah, Vim here. Yeah, so let's take a look at the content. Yeah, so if they do this, they do process env, whatever that is. Does it have? No, it doesn't. It doesn't do the fancy env with the file yet. Yeah, this one basically just does like process env. Yeah.
So and then node env. You want to just talk a little bit to the audience about like how you can use it to do cool stuff?
Yeah. So for basically, you probably have production and staging environment, and also development environment. I think in the future we would add a way to specifying environment as well, so it can be staging and not just like right now we only do dev and production, but I think a lot of people would want to build the development as well actually. So I think the thought in my mind is that eventually people would want to well anyway, that beside the point, that's a future thought, but now you have production and development. You have a way to differentiate between development and production environment for your code, right? So basically, you can swap out which code should be on production and which code should go in development. The cool thing about Plasmo is that Plasmo is based on PowerShell, and PowerShell actually reading this if-else statement is actually check, hey, if on production, and if you're on development branch, it's actually slash out that if statement. It slash the entire code block away from the bundle. So you actually never see the if code block. Yeah, if you do like if process env.e is developed and you do some like crazy debugging code in there, right? Production, it will actually slash the entire thing away from production code.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah, so that only work. So that is kind of the built-in behavior when it does the parsing, when you for production. Uh, for development, yeah. So that's why I'm not too sure how it would work with staging and development. We'll think about a staging environment soon. We have some thinking about like staging, and not just staging, but other environment as well in the future. So yeah,
Yeah, just to have like something that's not production, right?
yeah.
Cool. All right, now let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is our breaking change.
The breaking changes is that let me just open that example project. I have it here. Actually, inside our let me open my Plasma test workspace. So to those who have yet to those who are not watching our repo story, we have a Plasma test repo where we actually we showcasing all the bugs in RFC that we are experimenting with. Like so, it's a place for reproduction. Like basically bug reproduction, also RFC reproduction, and also RFC kind of a RFC experimentation actually. So you can see how a new feature of Plasma is developed. If you take a look at the history of one of the RFC, so one of the recent RFC is RFC 190. 190 implement the new content script that can mount on inline into the page, right? So previously, you would mount your component by
Louis, could you zoom in a little bit?
yeah. All right, so let me just show the previous. So actually, I do have a comprehensive example actually of all of the. I actually updated the with content script example, content script UI example. So previously, the Plasma mount is called get overlay, and so we have renamed. How about compare it? Let's compare it previously. What is it? Previously, the API was get mount point. Get mount point actually would get mount point is a function where you return a mount point for your element for your shadow DOM, right? The term get a little bit confusing for people. What mount point actually does, what mount point actually does, is that it actually just overlaying the element on top of the web page. But many people felt like mounting means mounting the shadow DOM inside the element.
Yeah, so just to like clear things up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're not actually like doing any sort of mounting or like going into the DOM and like putting the shadow DOM like in the tree where this point is, where this DOM element is, but rather like we are just cleverly determining where in the page this element exists, and then the shadow DOM doesn't care about the DOM tree. It's like on the like near like adjacent to the body, but it's positioned absolutely on top of the element that you specify. It's not actually mounting it inside the DOM tree.
Yep. It basically overlaying on top of the document, and basically we're just aligning with the rectangle of the element returned by this function. But then the naming is a bit confusing, so we rename it to get overlay anchor. So get overlay anchor is what was previously get mount point. So get overlay anchor is precisely that you are finding an anchor point for your shadow DOM to mount onto.
Yeah, and I see we added some typing as well.
Yeah, we also added the typing for the get overlay anchor, which would allow you to basically it would make sure that you return the right thing. Yeah. So that is the breaking changes from get mount point to get overlay anchor. And so now when we have get overlay anchor, what is the opposite of overlay? Well, you have
Opposite of overlay is underlay.
maybe
Um,
underlay. Oh,
yeah.
well, I mean the neutral one is inline, right? So get inline anchor actually, right? Well, not actually, but the way that we have designed so far is we now have an inline anchor. So
It does
now,
make sense, right? Because like overlay is kind of considering this thing to be on top of the DOM, whereas inline is like we're kind of inserting ourselves into the DOM, right?
it's inside DOM, yeah. Basically, the idea is that if you want to actually mount your component inline, right? So for example, let's go to my, I have this Google Chrome browser page here, right? And here I have, so when I open up this new message, right, this element actually this element gets spawned by the page, right? So when you first open the page, this element was never there. And then what if I want to also mount the button in between the refresh and the more button, right? So it's actually a DOM that is injected in between these two guys, relatively, not overlay on top, right? So that's the idea of inline. We want to inlining our element into the page itself. Yeah, so the API, that's pretty simple, right? I mean, yeah, I think it's pretty simple. So if you look at the Gmail observing, so I have two inline injecting here. The first one, get the inline anchor. So this one, okay, let's go to the simpler one. The simpler one basically get the inline anchor for a huge query selector here. It's basically selecting this area here. It's actually trying to find this position of the more button, basically. You can use whatever method you want here, as long as it return HTML element. Yeah. And we simply just return that's it. That's all you have to do. You just get the inline anchor, and the rest is done by Plasma. All right, Plasma will just take the inline anchor, query for the document, and then it will mount your component in line with that what is it? With that web page. Without,
Right.
yeah, with all the shadow DOM intact, so you can actually basically your shadow DOM is protected and what is it? It separates the style from the page style. All the isolation is there for you.
So does it do you need to, so when you do get inline anchor, do you need to give it like the DOM element? So for example, if you go back to the page, right?
Yeah.
Could you like right click and inspect just so we can see the tree? So you have these buttons, right? And they have a parent. Do you specify the parent?
So yeah, so that's the cool thing is that okay, by default, right? By default, it inject as a neighbor, as the adjacent neighbor.
Got it. And is there a way for you to say I wanted to inject
Yep.
like before or after?
Yep. So let's take a look at the next example, which is the Gmail observing. So when you have the inline anchor, and imagine if your anchor, right, you want to change the behavior of how you're mounting your shadow host. You can actually export a mount shadow host method, which has a very everything you need to mounting that shadow host for you. You have the inline anchor, which is what the inline anchor is what will be returned by the inline anchor will be the result of your document query selector. It is provided here because we actually cache it we cache the inline anchor in the internal logic for mounting, so that we can continuously observe in the page for the location of the mounting for the anchor. And we also have the shadow host here for you to mount. And then you can do inline anchor dot append children or insert adjacent before begin. So this will actually insert our shadow host before the item, so before the element. So basically, it should inject this button before the new message, not after.
So what you're saying is that the default is it'll there's a default behavior, but you can also like return, you can like write a function for it to do whatever you want.
Yeah, you can write a function called mount shadow host and change the way that the shadow host would be append to your inline anchor, to your anchor basically.
Got it.
So I think for most people, like the default should work. So let's enable our extension here. Let's see how it goes. Let's refresh this. There we go. So we have this custom button that's being mounted. I think I was looking for the refresh. I was not looking for the more. So inject in between the refresh and more.
And the default is to inject after?
Yeah, after the refresh. Yeah.
Cool.
So it gets injected as a neighbor right next to the the refresh, and then here this custom composing here, custom composing button thingy is injected right before the shadow DOM. Before the anchor. Yeah, and the cool thing is because it's using mutation observer, if you close this, it will. So yeah, let's remove that, right? And then we do another composing. It will be able to find the element again. So one limitation here is, if let's say you have a bunch of them, it will mounting to the most to the first query, to the first element that it can query.
So that's related to that issue that we have. That's just about to get mount points, right? Being able to support many mount points.
That's one of them. Yeah, that's one that we would have to think about. How would we mounting to multiple of these guys, right? Either we mount our component to multiple, right? So the one solution for this right now, right? If you want to like mounting to the active kind of tab, right? And to make sure that you're composing your query selector, right? Your query selector should actually try to pick the element that's being active to make sure you're experimenting with that. But yeah, eventually there's an issue that we posted around how can we injecting our thing to all of our kind of a component.
Yeah, it's sort of like offering some sort of document.query selector all, right?
Yeah, precisely. Yeah.
And Louis, I want to ask another question. So like you have this thing here, right? Like custom button composing new message.
Mm-hmm.
So when you click X, what happens to our shadow DOM?
Yeah. So when you click X, right, our shadow DOM actually get unmounted. It can disappear, right? But it actually just is gone. It's got cleaned up, but by the web page context. It got cleaned up by the web page context, and because we actually don't have the web page context, we actually so the only way that we were able to figure out if our component is still mounting to the page or not is simply by just recursively. Actually, it does recursively. It's just trying to find the root node of our shadow host component, and check if it's still there on the page, checking if the root node is the document, like the page parent document.
So extension developers will need to kind of think about persisting state via storage or other mechanisms like that, right? Because it's not guaranteed that. So like in the example of the overlay, right? Like as long as the web page is open, that overlay will exist, right? It will be mounted and it will never be destroyed. But now I think, I guess developers will need to start thinking about sort of life cycle, like what happens when this is mounted.
The thing with content script, in my opinion, content script is not supposed to be. So content scripts should be like short-lived. I think most content script should also be thought of as a short-lived kind of script that potentially, right? And they should be stateless. The state should be handled by something else, definitely. But if you want to persist in the state, definitely send it to Chrome storage or something like that. Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. Yeah.
this apply to web app too, right? I mean, the extension, in the extension context, content script, your content script component UI get destroyed with the web page, right? So too bad, right? If you store state and you expect it to reappear again, well, I mean, because your component state is local, so even if it's unmounted, the state is gone. But this would be the same for your for any web app. If any web app has a component, right, and that component unmount, and you save the state locally, your local state will get wiped out anyway. You need a solution to basically, like, even Redux, right? Redux state or any kind of state management solution, either they dehydrate their state and store it in local storage, right? And then they hydrate it again on app initialization. Otherwise, the web is stateless in a sense, right? Unless you connect to the traditional server, and the server is serving you like a stateful web page with a session cookie or something like that. Yeah.
Got it. And so we have this thing, and it's really cool. What happens when the DOM changes? Like, how do we do updates?
Yeah, I think for most extension developer, this is like the norm for them, right? The norm is that you would basically maintaining the query, right? So the main thing you have to maintain is your query. This query to get that element. Yeah.
And then for an overlay, right? So like shifting gears a little bit.
Yep.
How does the overlay know when to update its bounding box?
Oh, okay. So the overlay right now is actually updating on every scroll. It updates on when you scroll the page, and also updating at the first render of the component. But we also so with Stefan suggestion, I added a method. So you can now supplying another method to the script UI.
I will stop you right there, Louis. This isn't Java. This is there's no need to say method. I will not have this in this stream. We call them functions.
Sure, applying a function. Interestingly, yeah, that's something that confuses a lot of people. I think when a bunch of people who are into like class would call a function method. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I got started programming. I would call everything a method.
Yeah, funnily. Anyway, okay, let's say you can now actually customizing the behavior of the overlay anchor by supplying a watch overlay anchor function. So if you provide a watch overlay anchor function, we would call that during the initialize use effect for the updating, and we're passing an update position. So now you can use like a set timeout or like or something along the line, right? Something
or like a mutation observer or anything, right?
Or whatever you want to actually to watch over the DOM, because the idea is that you have to watch over something to be able to updating the position and so on.
Yeah, it's like, I think the example we can give is like you're overlaying onto a web page, and like you don't want to do any relative stuff, but you still want this thing to overlay on a specific element. When we do it by default with scroll, it updates the position, the absolute position, because it's going to change when you scroll. That makes sense. But then there's other cases that developers want, right? So we just offer this functionality.
Precisely.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited about this one. I think maybe something we can do is like add a little warning message, right? Be like, hey, this is going to update. There's going to be a breaking change, and it looks like you're using the old version. So make sure to update, just so people are a little bit more like.
Yeah, I felt like maybe. I wonder how can we do that. There are two things that we should add, which is a bit mechanism for Plasma, right? So Plasma project can updating incrementally, right? And as they're updating, there is like a warning somewhere that's saying, hey, this thing should be migrated to a new API or something like that.
Or we just do it.
Like a code mod.
Like when they do PNPM dev, it sees whether they're using get mount point, and then they just regex replace to get overlay.
Yeah, I don't know. They should know.
no, of course not. This is a joke.
I mean,
Like
I know, I
if we
know. I mean,
update people's code remotely, I feel like that would be very bad, and I think people
Yeah.
would not like that. I personally wouldn't like a project to do that for my stuff. So
I mean, you can supply a Plasma code mod function, code mod or updating, right? Plasma update,
like auto update, right?
yeah, something like that. And then it
Yeah,
should.
I feel like that could be a kind of a cool that could be a cool JavaScript project for like a lot of projects, right? Like if you enable this in your package JSON called auto update, it will like automatically update your code, right? It's similar to the security vulnerability stuff that like bumps versions, right? But just
Mhm.
for yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Something along that line would eventually need to be done. We would have to lock the current version. I mean, I guess we can just parse the current package JSON for the version of Plasma.
So
And
the tricky thing there though is like they might not be using get mount point, you know? So like they're getting warnings for things that they're not using. Like there's a subset of our users.
no,
that
I'm saying
actually
like
care.
the auto update
Oh,
method, right?
right.
If you do Plasma auto update or Plasma update, right? It can parse through the file the entry file, right? We already have the list entry file, so we just run the same function to get all the entry file, and then we just grab them or whatever.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like I think if we supply it as a command, that would be awesome because then people are intentionally doing it and we're not
Yeah,
just automatically doing it. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Alright then. What else do we have in store?
Awesome. Let's take a look. Like we got source maps. Did we talk about that last week?
I don't think so. But if you want to enable source map and make reviewer job easier, you can now do that for your production bundle. Just supply -- source maps.
And on top of
And-
that, like if you want to use Sentry or anything, I think like providing source maps for like those kind of tools. I think right.
Yep, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Should help with analytic and stuff. Especially if you don't really care about leaking your source code to your user, then
Yeah. The other thing that I don't think we mentioned last week was stable names for HTML files.
I think we did during
we
the
did?
demo. Yeah, I think I kind of showcased how after we bundle, we will have stable name for each of these guys. For each of
Right.
the
Yeah.
index
We
like
did.
that,
Yeah. For all the HTML. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then one other thing I want to signal boost. So there's people that I think a couple people have asked us so far. It might be because it's not in our documentation yet, which we probably need to add. But just as a signal boost here, if you have different icons that you want to have for like development and for production and stuff like that, you can do that within the file names themselves. You don't actually have to like use our kind of env replacement in your package JSON or anything like that to specify the icons. You can do it all via file names.
Yeah, we do need to update the documentation, right? There's a dog issue on this. Hey, new icon asset resolution, 10 days ago. So we actually now supporting icon 512, and then also icon production, stuff like that.
Damn.
Yeah.
I'll add this into the docs depending on when we merge.
I
guess I gotta get on that.
Time's flying, man. Time's flying.
Yeah. So, what's it called? That's one thing that we heard a bunch, and then the other thing that might be interesting to kind of think about is the storage library.
Mm-hmm.
So, we heard from Richard from our community. Shout out to Richard. He's been very active in our community, and one of the things that he was talking about was having types for storage. So if you want to use like Chrome storage and you want to have like nice type safety checks, we actually offer a library. A lot of kind of people that have been with Plasma for a while might remember it. It's one of our first things we published, but basically it's a library that makes it easy to parse JSON and like save actual JSON blobs onto storage. And then we also supply nice quota checks to make sure you're not saving too much and your quota is exceeded. And at the same time, we offer a React hook as well. We have to use storage to make it easy to work with React, but you don't have to use React to use this library if you don't use a hook.
Yep. I think the one thing that might keep people from using this library is actually the module. The module export here. Yeah. This actually, I heard this actually breaks some project for some reason. They don't like this. It's kind of dumb.
Dang, that's a shame.
Yeah.
The other thing, Louis, that I just want to ask you about the storage library. So when you look at the main file, we have a type check when we get, but we don't have a type check when we set. And why is that?
Let's see. So when we get something,
we have a generic and it's all like type safe and all that, but then when we set and sync, we actually don't have a type check.
Yeah, so when you set data, we expect you to just use any kind of raw value, and we parse them into JSON anyway. Right? The get type, we try to parse them. Yeah, I think we do try to parse the value somehow with JSON.parse.
So shouldn't we expect the contract to like hold up when we set and get?
So when you get something, right, you are getting a template T that what is it? That can be string, okay? That can guarantee be probably a string. But when you set the raw value, this raw value does not have to be a string at all. It doesn't even have. It could be something that's not even an object.
Could you go back up to the get?
Yeah.
So
the T is the type.
It won't be a string.
No, the T is a type of whatever we are resolving back, right, to the user, right?
Won't it always be a JSON object?
No, T is actually a string. When it parse value, right, T could be a string, but you can also assign to any type. The idea here is that you can type it however you want. You can type it to an object, to a number. The string is a default type of this particular instance.
That makes sense. But isn't it the case that like raw value will have the same type as what we get from?
So not entirely. So the raw value is what? Let's see. When you set the data, right, we actually don't really care what the type of the data is if you set it.
But
because why? No, why? Why would we care about the type of data when you set it, right? Because the storage engine, the storage engine that ingesting the raw value is Chrome storage or local storage, right? And these agnostic storage engine don't really care about what value you're giving it. Meaning,
that's true.
For the user, when they're setting data, they don't really, only when they get would they care about the type. But when they set, they can throw whatever they want. They don't really care because when you're setting, right, you're passing in a value down anyway. The raw value need to be any type to actually, so we streamify, right? That's why we streamify. So it become anything, but eventually it's still a string. It basically, the value is just a string when you set it. So, and when we set stuff, we don't really return anything at all. We return undefined or I think nothing.
So my thinking here is like as a developer, like I know that Chrome doesn't care about this because I mean this is some abstraction that we're adding, right? Like what we're doing is like we're making this easier for developers, not necessarily for Chrome, right?
Yeah.
And then like when I think about it from a developer perspective, like I should have like, if I'm going to be like my thinking here is like when I create a storage library and I define like a T, my get and set should operate within the same type, because when I'm getting and setting on the same
So
key, I think they should be the same type, right?
the type system not that strong in that way though, right? Because it relying on the type, it relying on the storage engine.
It's relying on the storage engine. So
Yeah.
we're abstracting away the idea of a storage engine here, right? That's the whole point of this library.
Somewhat, yeah. Well, okay. The get here, get a key, right? You can set many key, right? Right. You can get and set many key, right?
Mm-hmm.
The idea you talk about is actually implementing the hook. In the hook, every time you invoke a hook, right, is a single key, a key pair, a single key to get the value or set a single value, right?
Can you share the hook code just so like we can highlight that?
When it comes to the storage engine is more of an abstraction over the internal window, the Chrome storage, right? So it's more or less abstracting away the Chrome storage, but it's still very agnostic in terms of the namespace. So it can get and set any key, and any of these key can have any value. That's why the get here with the get technically, right? The get does not need it doesn't need this at all. This is really for the user. The template string here is for the user to type the returning of this thing, because this is a parse value, right? Without the typing here, right? They would have to do get with as the type they were doing.
Yeah, and then they would have to like implement their own type checking and stuff like that, so they can get like nice convenience like code completion and stuff like that, right? But here we're offering that to them like automatically.
Yeah. And the thing is that if you do template generic here, it doesn't really do anything, because we actually don't even check the raw value anyway. We don't care because we already invited it into a stringify. So basically, we're treating raw value as anything basically, and they can send anything here. Yeah.
So what you're saying is that there is no coupling between like when we set, it's not like we're gonna get the same thing. Like these are kind of stateless functions.
Somewhat, yeah. Imagine, right, when you
like
get
they don't couple together. Like get and set, they're just independent functions of one another.
Somewhat, yeah. When you set data, right, another instance of the storage, right, can actually set on the same key, right? And they might change. So someone set it to a string, and then someone set it to a 2. Okay, it broke. The flow would broke, but I mean, I think the point of the storage engine, it shouldn't be to dictating the type. There is. So I saw the implementation of the RPC package, right, and also WebEx bridges, their library to do like communication on what on web extension. What I saw is that they have this they define these interfaces, but because they tightly control the interfaces of the callback function. So on event, strictly this data type will be returned, and then you can only send the event with that data type.
Mm-hmm.
You can only like invoke that event with that data type.
Well, so that's what we're doing in use in the hook, right?
So yeah, it's a single pair, right? Basically a single pair.
Exactly.
So let's take a look at the hook. In the hook, so everything is a single type. So there's only a single type here. So when you use storage, you declare the type first. The type could be any, but then it actually infers the type from the on-init as well. So if you supply an on-init, the type will get inferred from this. So you actually don't have to worry about the type at all. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so key will always be a string, and then the value is going to be T, right? That makes sense. Cool. Well, that was a fun little trip down the storage module. If you guys want to use a storage package, you can do so by doing add plasma hq/storage in your npm. Sounds great. Louis, any other updates that you think we should highlight this week?
So one thing you mentioned, right? That, I mean, I think that technically there's a way to somehow synchronizing the get key and the set key. So on the same key, right? The value type has to be somewhat the same.
Yeah, I think the way to do it would just be to every time you create a storage, it's actually tightly coupled the key, right, with the value.
It's something like this, right? So that's something that we do with the. So that's something that we did with the hook, right? With the hook, but if you look at the WebEx bridges package, you can see that they do this. They do so with TypeScript protocol, right? You would declare the module. You declare the protocol map, okay? And for each string here, it maps to the type of your return type, of the value type.
Got it. I think that makes sense for messaging, but I don't know, like for storage, you're probably gonna have a lot of ad hoc stuff, right?
Something along that line, yeah, something along that line. I think. I mean, so basically we provide this on the case by case basis for the hook API already. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Generally, I don't like to declare a global module like this. I mean, it's I think is an interesting like thought to might be implementing this in the storage if we ever need it. If we want to have very consistent typing between get and set.
Yeah, and I think like it offers potentially like a way for the type system to reason about like keys and values in a way that we don't have that right now. Like imagine you do like a storage.set and you give it a key and then you give it like a number 2. It's going to be like, hey, that's actually wrong for this key. That's not what this key is.
Yeah.
Which is actually really powerful.
Yeah. You just have to declare something like this. You have to declare the module to make sure that to matching up with the protocol map, basically, whatever you have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, something to think about. But also, the thought in my mind right now is, okay, we have this WebEx bridge kind of library, right? They are still pretty cumbersome when you want to use this with like React, for example. I want it to be super simple. Like the get selection should be a hook, and then you can continuously calling the same hook on the message and so on and so forth. So that's something that I want to investigate eventually. It's for the RPC packages.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think that is. Should we log that as an issue in the storage package?
Sure.
All right. I think we're good to go.
Nice.
Right. Anything top of mind? Anything to show
That's
up?
it. I think. Let's see. Well, there is one thing. So we revised our waitlist kind of process. So if you already registered for our waitlist, don't worry. You don't have to do anything new. But if you want to check out the new process, or if you're not a part of our waitlist yet, and by the way, like let's talk a little bit about the waitlist, right? So we have this product. It's in beta. It's called Testbed. So the idea with Testbed is it provides that staging environment that like extensions really never had. Right now, if you want to have like a staging environment, you have to do like a ton of work to get that working, and then like a lot of times you still have to go through the review process, and it's super annoying. So Testbed, the idea behind it is like if you face a problem where you have users that are in beta or alpha, that could be internal users, that could be like people on your team, that could be people on other teams in your companies, things like that, where you want them to get the bleeding edge of your extension, but you just don't have, you unfortunately just don't have that kind of. So by the way, I think the reason why the plus is not there is because it reads from the URL, and plus is a space, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, going back to the point. So Testbed is our web store. So Chrome has a web store, Firefox has a web store, all these different browsers have a web store, and we're making a Plasma web store, and specifically designed for alpha testing. So you put your extension on our web store, you give it out to your users, and now we're able to push out your extension to all of your beta testers with no review process, straight to their machines. That makes it as easy as possible for you to like iterate, figure out problems, figure out like there's bug, or like this feature is really awesome, we should prioritize like building out more features like this, and the feedback loop becomes really short. That's kind of what we're going for here. So if this sounds interesting to you, if you have this problem of like constantly having to do this review process, or if you're dragging and dropping zip files all the time, and then on every update you have to like hound everyone to say like, hey, could you drag and drop the zip file? Sign up for the waitlist, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Right now, we're onboarding people a little bit slowly, just so make sure that we kind of have like the best product experience. But I think like you sign up like sooner or later, you'll hear from us.
Yep. Yeah, Testbed I think is like the only staging environment, right, for web extensions. So
Yeah, like the only like one that isn't behind like an extension company with like 10 or 15 employees, and like they have their own infrastructure and stuff like that, right? Like it's sort of like before AWS, right? Like people had to have their own servers, they had to put them in their like warehouse or like somewhere that they own. They had to maintain it, so they had to hire people to do that. Super annoying. That's how testing is right now for extensions. Like people have to do it all in-house. Super annoying. So what we're offering is a solution where you don't have to worry about that anymore. You just basically pay Plasmo, and then we'll set up all the infra for you.
sounds good.
Cool. All right. Hey everyone.